Hello guys, this is Vicky Kumar Sharma and I'm an MTech student at IITM, and today I would like to show you my CFA through my presentation, that is on cutaneous respirations in frogs through dissolved diffuse mechanism. Okay, so I would like to thank Dr. GK Suresh sir for giving me this opportunity to show my CFA. Well, the objective of my CFA is to understand the dissolved diffuse mechanism through which the O2 is transferred to blood vessels in the frog, and the second objective is to find the permeability of oxygen through skin of frog through various assumptions that I'll be mentioning after a couple of slides. Well, what is cutaneous respirations in frog, or for that matter, a toad, which I have taken into the consideration? Before going to the cutaneous respiration, I would like to add on saying there are two modes of respirations in frog. One is through nostrils, that is like normal lungs, and there are three chambered heart through which the normal pulmonary respiration takes place. And the second is cutaneous respiration, that is that occurs on the skin of the frog. As I have shown you here, here the exchange of gases takes place. So mostly what happens when the frogs lives in the water, or like when they are hibernated, or they are under or when they are in estivation period, they respire through their skins, that is called as in cutaneous respiration. For the simplification of our calculation, we have considered basically the skin and the alveolar cells of the blood vessel to be a single layer. As we can see, that is so thin, the skin is so thin on the frog that the epidermis cell is highly vascularized. Going to the next, our methodology, like how we performed. So for that, I have shown you the membrane through which the diffusion of O2 takes place. So basically, this is the skin of a frog through which what is called as an epidermis, through which the diffusion of O2 takes place. So during my calculation, I have considered this width as well as the width of this thing, that is nothing but the cells, the single layered cell of the capillaries. The total width is turned out to be 30 micrometers. And this is our blood vessels. I mean, this is the frog's blood vessel through which the blood flows. This is the equation of continuity, and during my calculation, I have considered a rectangular system of continuity, in which what we see is at steady state, what happens is the rate of diffusion of oxygen through the membrane is a constant, and there is no bulk velocity. That is why Vx, Vy, and Vz, that is the velocity along x, y, and z direction, is 0. But there is a term for diffusion which plays a major role over here. But since there is no velocity, since there is no concentration gradient along the x direction, I mean along the y direction and z direction, that is why these two terms turns out to be 0, and there is no reaction taking place for which the production of O2 can be taken. That is why it is 0 again. So this expression simplifies to be as such. Going on to the next slide, we see that the previous equation, which is this, could be integrated, and we obtain a general solution as such. Now, applying the boundary conditions, that is at x is equals to 0, x is nothing but the distance through which the membrane, that is membrane distance, at x is equals to 0, that is outer surface. At that time, the concentration of O2 is nothing but a partition function into the concentration of O2, because we know that the skin is full of cutaneous, and that is where the blood, that is where the oxygen get trapped, and that is why the partition function plays a role over there. So basically, this terms gives us the concentration of O2 in the just in the skin, which is rich with the mucus. And xd represents the distance that oxygen has to transfer in order to reach the blood vessels, and Ci is the concentration at which the blood vessels, basically the oxygen concentration in the blood vessels. So on integrating and finding out, applying the boundary condition, we obtain a particular solution for the above differential equation, which is this thing. and for a toad, we obtain that is C naught Ci upon D value turns out to be so much. So in this equation, Ca is giving us basically Ca is giving the concentration profile of oxygen at various region of the skin. So where here n is nothing but it's an the number of micron distance from the skin of a frog, and k is the partition functions. So the flux of the epidermal cell and in capillary cells can be considered as a single unity, as I have told you before, and considering the Fick's first law, through which we get the through which we get the flux of oxygen entering the membrane, is given by the equation over here. So differentiating the Ca term which we obtained before, which is this one, we obtain the other after simplification we obtain the flux, we obtain the flux equation as such. Applying the value of like C naught and Ci for a toad which I have taken under the consideration, we obtain the equation as such. So basically this parameter, that is di effective k upon d, gives me the permeability of the membrane and the capillary cells which is taken under the consideration, and the effective and the permeability term is given out to be as such as shown here. So P is equals to basically 33,333.33 D, that is diffusion of oxygen, the effective diffusion of oxygen, and K is the partition coefficient through which partition coefficient. Well, from here what we conclude is we could clearly see from the equation of permeability and also the flux, these are two functions of diffusivity and the partition coefficient, and this is what the importance of this equation is, because what we see here is there is the partition function and the flux, it just depends upon the diffusivity of an oxygen through that membrane and also the partition functions. Well, talking about the importance of this equation is, like, we know that the frogs undergoes an hibernation, and when they swim under the water, their metabolism changes a bit. So in order to study that metabolism, the controlled metabolism under the diffusion under the cutaneous respiration, this equation finds an importance, and also the concentration profile of oxygen at various level can be studied through these equations. Moreover, this is one of the generalized form of an permeability equation which is given here, but this equation in turn will be helpful to find out the more complex equations of the permeability, which could be monitored through these equations. So this is all about my CFA, and I would like to thank you for having your patience to listening me. Thank you so much.